Mi gente, you already know who it is. It's the radioactive pop with Danny Limelight, United Wrestling Network World Heavyweight Champion. And make sure you tune into the Alliance blog every week. You heard it here first. Straight from Bobby.
They want NWA? Let's give them NWA.
Who are those guys?
And then there's the other guys.
We're the other guys. We're the guys nobody ever bets on.
The following program is intended for mature audiences.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show.
It's time for the Other Alliance Guys podcast with your hosts, Tim, Dave, and Jeremy.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and what can we tell you? It's the Other Alliance Guys, or two out of us, two of the three anyway. Our man wrestling with the MMA, Jeremy, who's in the chat, is feeling under the weather. We hope that you feel better, buddy. I can tell with the jokes that are flying between you and Willie right now that you're already on the mend. So welcome, everybody. We are the Other Alliance Guys. We are a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information around the National Wrestling Alliance, the United Wrestling Network, and various independents around the world. I'm joined by Dave Scooby. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well,
Good. Well, we got a show tonight, guys, and we got some people in the chat, so please speak up. Well, like I say, Willie and Jeremy have been going after Tyrus and now Angelina Love for various things. And normally, I'm nobody to put someone down for their appearance, and it's all in good fun. But this comment, Angelina Love coming out looking like an abused credit card with 0% interest in a shitty payment history. Oh my God. Ah, man. It is good to hear you guys out there. James Bell's here. Willie's here, of course. Willie doesn't like WWE. Willie doesn't like Tyrus. Willie doesn't like Angelina Love, but Willie loves the NWA and United Wrestling Network, just like the rest of us do. We're glad you're here. As I say, speak up in the chat and let's talk about some stuff this evening, because we're going to look at the NUFF SAID pay-per-view with a pay-per-view review on that. No championship wrestling from Jeremy tonight. He's on health leave right now. He's on a sabbatical for 1 week, and Dave's going to be booking opposition for La Rebelion in the NWA World Tag Team titles. But hey, let's talk about a few things right off the bat. First of all, I should say we kind of made the call that from now on, whatever this means for anybody, we're not going to be doing power anymore. We're not even going to do the results. Jay and DK and Jaden are all over those tomorrow night, every Thursday night. They get into that pretty good. And we go longer than we'd like to be. Like once we hit 2 hours, we start to go, oh, we've been sitting here for a long time. So we're kind of going to dump power, and, we're going to stick with USA and obviously the pay-per-views and UWN for Championship Wrestling from Hollywood and Memphis. But for power, Dave, we did have some interesting things happen last night when what I thought was overall a pretty good show, including a new pay-per-view announced for April in Chi-Town, NWA 312. That's the area code, I guess.
Yeah. Well, one of many area codes for the Chicago area. I'm not sure exactly where they're going to do it. I do know Freelance Wrestling, which several of NWA talent started out and still wrestle for. I'm hoping we're able to work in conjunction with them, get a decent size auditorium, maybe 500, 600, 700 people. I'm not really sure what their regular crowd is like, but Scions wrestled there. Also, wink, wink. Robert Anthony does some shows there as well. Yeah. Joe Alonzo has wrestled. Missa Kate. Maybe Marche Rocket may show up. Who knows? Haven't seen him in a while.
That's right. He's been
But
missing in action.
there's quite a few Chicago based wrestlers, and hopefully they bring in the people that were at the last tapings, and I'm looking for it to be a hopefully a new area that the NWA can go to at least once a year.
You know, Jay entitled his last show, like, What's Not to Love About the NWA? And you look at it right now, I mean, there's a couple of things that maybe you don't love about the NWA, but we're going to Mexico, baby. We're going to Australia. They're coming north to Chicago. Hey, Billy, if perchance you're listening, it's not that far to Canada. I mean, there are all these markets, as Dave points out. Hey, listen, Poyo's here. Where's that dirty no-gooder DKM? That's tomorrow night. They're the A team. We're the B team. But so glad that you are here, Poyo, as we look to talk about what's going on in the NWA. Let's go to the chat before we talk about it a little bit more. Hey, Rick Del Santos here.
Hey, Rick.
Rick, we're going to see. Dave and I are both going to see. In March on the 25th at the Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiator Show in rustic uptown Glassboro, New Jersey. You know, Jaden really does such a good job of marketing that I have that ingrained in my head, the way that he says it every single time now. It's funny. Let's see what we got here. Oh man, the chat is active. Yeah, Rick is here. Yeah, we're not doing Power anymore, but we're just going to do USA. But we did have a Power image. Jeremy does our thumbnails. It spoke to us immediately with Rolando and the Spectaculars doing the dance in the middle of the ring. That's why this is NWA Fever tonight. We're not a B team. Thank you, my friend. It is. You know, Jay has a question. Is Kevin Kiley okay? We should talk about.
Wow, that was scary.
Yeah, so scary. You know, I was like, oh, in my chair. It was crazy. And Poyo said he is okay. Poyo can confirm that. Yeah. Oh, except that Dave Scooby is DED to me after refusing to take pics. What's going on, Dave?
I have this thing. It's nothing about anyone else. It's about me taking pictures.
Right.
But okay, next time I'm planning on being in Chicago, and I guarantee I will take a picture with Poyo and I will post it. And anybody feel free to make any comments on it. I cross my heart. It is a promise. A picture will be taken.
Well, you and I are connected on Facebook. I don't think there's a single picture of you on Facebook.
No.
No. Yeah. Jeremy points out, hey, Dog doesn't put on shows. They put on events. I do screw that part up constantly. Sam Retro's here. Welcome, Sam. Yeah. Hey, listen, let's talk about this right off the bat. We have a new, as Jeremy likes to say, TV champion, world television champion, and Tom Latimer out of Power last night. It was just, wow, that was shocking. It was great. It was exciting to see. Like, that's how the TV title needs to work for me. What did you think, Dave?
I was glad to see Tom finally with some gold besides his tag team run. I mean, it just goes up from there. I mean, he has 7 defenses he has to make before he can be bumped up to possibly go after the 10 pounds of gold. But just to see the power couple, both sporting gold. Yeah. And with I mean, we'll now see him on TV being featured even more.
Right. Yeah. And I
And
think
that's always good.
like you and I were talking before the show, I'm almost pleasantly surprised that at the pay-per-view, hey, no television title defense. I thought, well, that's new and it's interesting. And then the very next taping that we see, boom, out of the blue. And I'm hoping that title gets defended every week, every 2 weeks, something like that. And then it's like defense, 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 new champion, and just start using it to elevate people up into new heights.
Mm-hmm.
So it was great to see. Jay's here. Hey, boss. Hey, Poyo just says on Kevin Kiley. Kevin and I rode to the airport together. He was embarrassed by the event, but fairly unharmed. Yeah, I guess the event meaning just the botched dive. I hate to see botched because God, what an attempt. But hey, Dave, next time there's photos, it's $5.
I'll slap a 10 down and we'll do 2.
Two. There you go.
We'll do 2. Yep.
And Sam says Kevin Kiley's booked for an indie match this Sunday in Lynbrook, New York. Great. So glad he's unheard. And we'll talk about that match. What's Jay saying here? La Rosa Negra beating up the trailer park trap. Well, okay. Let's get into that in a second. But I think the last thing out of Power, and I know that Jay and the boys will talk about it in depth tomorrow night. Other than the new pay-per-view that's being announced in NWA 312, the new TV champion we saw in Tom Latimer, we have another title being introduced in the National Wrestling Alliance, as there will be a tournament to crown the first ever inaugural NWA Women's Television Champion. What do you think about that announcement, Dave? And what I believe is the 9th title belt in the NWA right now.
I mean, it's I think there may be too many titles for the time allotted in programming, but if they're able to take those titles and defend them outside of the NWA, all that does is make those titles more worthy.
Yeah.
But when they are defended outside of the NWA, it gets the NWA name out there. When they're defended in the NWA, hopefully whoever the champions are defending against, it helps bring them up the ladder.
Right.
And not all the titles need to be defended all the time. Save them for the bigger events. That maybe if La Rebelion is your tag champion, but they're in Mexico defending them, that's why you have your U.S. titles. Those can be defended on TV, on the YouTube shows, or on the pay-per-views.
Right. The titles are built for expansion.
Yes.
Also, like I think all of us in our group used to go, there's not enough wrestlers for all these belts, and that used to be true.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the roster right now, and I did it like 2 months ago. It's been a while, but there was something like 75, 80 in-ring talent that were, they were in and out. Some of them, most of them were part of the roster. There's close to 100 members of talent, including, the outside the ring personnel, like managers and whatnot, like Poyo and everything else. But to your point there about traveling champions, Poyo says Scooby is right. Almost everyone on the roster hopes to be a traveling champion, if given the opportunity. And she backs me up here. There's ample numbers of talents on our roster. Yeah, it's incredibly massive backstage. Like I say, I counted almost 100 people like 2 months ago, just on a spreadsheet that I kept. So that's amazing. Let me just go back here with the television championship change. Jay says I love Jordan Clearwater, but that was tremendous, and things look real bad for Church's Money and Idolmania right now. It looks certainly interesting. And just to wrap up the Kevin Kiley thing. Poyo said, quote from Kevin, I have a ways to go to be where I want to be, but I'm glad to be back. And that the round of tapings was very fun. Some great stuff happening. I really enjoyed Power this past week. What did you? I know we're not going to talk about Power precisely, but what did you think of Power yesterday, Dave?
I was glad to see it. It's one of these things of having your champions featured, whether they're wrestling or not. Back in the day, WWF would have Hogan on. He'd have the belt, but he never wrestled on TV.
Right, yeah. So what Willie's saying right now, defend it on
So
pay-per-view.
it's like highlight your champions, keep some of the stories going, figure out what stories need to be told, because not every wrestling match has to have a storyline. It could just be wrestler A versus wrestler B.
Right. Yeah.
So it's one of those things of figure out what you want to push it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, roll the dice again and see what comes up.
Well, Sam has said there's not enough time for another championship. Not enough TV time for another championship. You may look. I'm not a TV producer. You may be right. I think that was sort of the general opinion. But we've got two shows, one longer than the other, every week, and there is ample opportunity to split some of these people up. You also don't have to show those titles week in, week out either. Like the TV title, I kind of feel that's what it's built for. But there, like I said, there is, you could have the U.S. Tag Team Champions one week, and then the next week bring in your Women's Tag Champions or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
Jay points out they have 4 belts for the women. How much longer before an all-woman pay-per-view? Well, hopefully not that much longer. I enjoyed Empower, although it wasn't all women, but the sentiment was there. Koyo says the problem isn't the number of people or the number of titles, if there is any problem. It's not enough time available to showcase everyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it. And if you have this amount of titles, then I think you have to carry that larger roster in order to try to feature, to show that not everyone has a belt around here. That some of them are doing things outside of titles or seeking those titles. James says, I'm hoping Tyrus has finally put Rolando and the belt gimmick to sleep. Yeah, we'll talk about, well, I guess Jay will talk about that one. I've heard some people say, hey, look, for Power, it was an embarrassment of a main event. I don't agree. I think that you like what you like, and other people might like things that you don't like, and the fact that it wasn't for me doesn't mean that it wasn't entertaining for 9 out of 10 other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're as a champion, if you get called out, what are you supposed to do?
Right.
No. Well, they can't say that he hasn't defended the belt. He did right there.
That's true. Poyo says, I also think, based on my gut instincts, that all of those things will be considered and potentially addressed in the coming months. Ooh. DKM says, I'm pretty sure it was an embarrassment. All right. Listen, everybody's entitled to their opinion. DK's opinion is more educated than mine and a lot of other people's. But, I mean, look, I don't want to see Tyrus defend the world title against Rolando in a main event either. But it is what it is. And I enjoyed the show overall. And I thought Power was a pretty good, follow up for the pay-per-view. But let's get to the pay-per-view. We've talked about 312, at least what we know about it already, and the Women's Television Championship and Tom Latimer. So why don't we go to NUFF SAID, since we didn't have NWA USA to talk about. DKM squeaky chair. For this past Saturday, which was February 11th, I believe. Let's go quick through the pre-show, but not too quick, Dave. We know something happened there. it started with La Rosa Negra against Missa Kate. Kate, I noted, in her, I came in 5 minutes too late, but I heard just or a couple of minutes too late. Joe Gelly pointing out, like, well, she's in a Bears attire, but that team's not going to the Super Bowl. And I thought, ooh, that's rough. The Bears are rough.
Yeah.
But the ending to this one comes with a frog splash by Negra for the pin, and it seems like they're putting some push behind her. What did you think of the match?
I liked the match. It showed what she could do, what both of these women can do. But I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, there's really no storyline. But now we know after
Right.
that, yes, there is a storyline that basically they're battling, and you're going to be seeing them going after that women's TV title. And if anything, it's a new person on the roster, that her last match against Taya Valkyrie ended due to violence, and they black screen and didn't show it. So it's basically almost like an Etch-a-Sketch, if you know what that is. I'm old, so they basically shook it and they're starting over again.
Right.
And I mean, they're going to be able to push both of these women depending on what direction they want to go. I thought it was overall a good match, and it highlighted the newcomer, which I thought was good.
Boy, unforeseen circumstances.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I thought it was solid too. Then we had Mims and Dak Draper taking on Blake Troop and Jack Stain. No furry vest for Jack Stain. They come out in those, I think it was a Savages Outlaws t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Silvio giving them the ring intros with their new tag team. It's more or less, as I recall it anyway, a more or less a one-sided affair. It's a nice display of expertise and whatnot by with Dane and Troop, but there's a point in the match where basically Silvio tries to take out Mims, and Draper ends up stacking up Troop for the win. I was surprised by this one, that they put Mims in and Draper over. Did you see that one coming?
No, I was very surprised, but it's one of these things of them being a new tag team, that Jax is so used to wrestling by himself that Blake is a newcomer to wrestling. He knows how to get down and fight UFC and jiu-jitsu style, but he's new, not so much in the fighting game, but new to actual wrestling and knowing how to respond. So seeing how he responded and the little mistakes that he did make, you can forgive and forget, but I really don't think Jax is that forgiving. That it's going to be one of those that we either work together as a team or you're my next enemy.
That
And
seems like
either way, it builds him up.
Yeah, for sure. It was good to see anytime Mims and Dak Draper get a win too. I feel like a win immediately elevates them again. And
Oh yeah.
I want to see them both continue to rise, especially Matthew Mims, who I think is worth so much to this company at this stage in his career. Hey, Willie had an Etch-a-Sketch for Christmas as a Christmas present, Dave. I don't know if I ever had one. My kids had one, but I don't know if I ever had one. They're fun, though. So then we get for the pre-show, May Valentine's with EC3. He's signed a contract. Kind of sounded for both like him and for Control Your Narrative, which I'm sure, on Power we learn a bit more about that in a way. I'm sure Jay and DK will go over that tomorrow. Somebody wrote online, he's very Tyler Durden in this promo. Like, I think kind of sums up EC3 as a character.
Mhm.
Although, right off the bat, what did you think of? Look, like, before I say what did you think, let me just say that I think EC3 is a tremendous talent in the ring. He looks the shit. He's great on the mic, and sometimes I question his material. But what did you think?
Basically the same. He's a great wrestler. He can talk, gift of gab, can go in the ring, but it's almost like the control your narrative or him trying to outthink other people and use a psychological advantage over people. It's just not clicking.
Right.
So, I mean, I'd rather just see him. I mean, he can still do his control your narrative, just back it down a notch and just go in there and wrestle.
Right.
He's a great wrestler, former world champion in TNA. I mean, just go in and work your ass off.
I wonder if they're going to build, as we'll see later on Power, and I'll tune in for that one, like Jay's tuning in here tomorrow night. I wonder if they're going to build a group around him, or if they're just going to keep him as sort of that one-man cult figure who works on one wrestler at a time. It seems like he's done with Tom Latimer, or the other way around. So I don't know. I guess we'll see as time goes on. We then get Odinson and Joe Alonzo. So Joe is a great hire, I think, to the NWA, and I was, he came on early with those matches with Scion that were very, very good for Power months ago. They've made him a heel, and he's one of those guys that kind of takes every potential shortcut. He's he's your classic yell at you, smack you in the head sort of heel as he goes. But basically, Odie's just too big for Alonzo. He's a human juggernaut of power in the ring, and there is a mistimed moonsault, as I recall it, by Alonzo that leads to the Asgardian pounce, and that F10 variation that I'm so sorry I don't know what it's called, for a fairly, I wouldn't say easy, but a fairly solid victory over Joe. What did you think of this one?
I thought it was a good match. They're rebuilding Odinson. Alonzo, I was glad he got a match, even though it was a pre-show for the pay-per-view. A new hire needs to get in there and show his wares. Now what they need to do is get Alonzo some wins, whether it be on USA, which I think would be the best, build him back up again. He's willing to go in there and fight just about anybody, but let's get him some wins so when he does go against someone else, it means something.
Yeah, to me, he's ripe for that spot, that hole that Colby Carino left behind.
Mm-hmm.
That little rat, that little weasel of a guy who's super talented, and he could take it from you, whatever belt or anything else you might be holding that he wants. Hey, Jay says, talking about EC3 wants to be Tyler Durden, but not nearly as interesting, but nearly as interesting. I think he means not nearly as interesting. Tom Latimer versus EC3 TV title feud. Well, we do see him in the end of Power with Tyrus there as well, but I know you'll talk about that. But talk about Star Power over the TV title. Yeah, man, I'd be down for that. All he wants to throw in the U.S. Tag Team titles and the TV championships, there being 2 coming up, should be defended on Power and USA, as well as the new women's TV title too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
like we talked about a few weeks ago, it seemed like there used to be a split that doesn't seem to be there anymore. I mean, we don't want a brand split. I don't mean that, but God, can you imagine? But if to have one title on one and the other titles on the other, with some crossovers, I think that would be tremendous. May Valentine, our Playboy Playmate, is backstage with Thrillbilly Silas Mason, the fastest rising star in the NWA, I think, with a rocket on his back right now. And they're talking about the rubber match. He states basically that there's nothing between them but air and opportunity. I thought it was a pretty good line. Then he sucked the air out, kind of. And Kratos isn't going to survive the sorry, I'm reading the comment. He won't survive the thrill ride. Poyo's first comment was, "It might be wise to place certain belts primarily on NWA USA to give it star power." Yes, I agree. But says, "How very dare you call me a rocket?" No, ma'am, I did not mean to insinuate that whatsoever. Tremendous combination of Poyo and Thrillbilly, which I know around here we're all very very popular. About. So we got right after this looks that kill, sort of the first or second, depending on how you look at it, intergender tag team in the NWA, taking on Max the Impaler and Genocide. So Joe notes that this is a regular tag team match, there's no intergender rules. Jay's just said, "I hate the term rubber match." So do I. And even announced it that way. I didn't. Anyway, it's fine. But I'm not a fan of it either. So no intergender rules apply on this match. Max comes out with Amy Rose, who was their manager in Ring of Honor, I'm told. But I don't know much about this. Tell me about it, Dave.
I've seen Amy Rose a couple times in matches and watched on TV. She's a good manager, but willing to use tactics that aren't specifically by the rules. So when in trouble, she's willing to break some rules to help her clients out, whoever her clients may be at the time. Great. But I'm glad they are bringing in other talent that are currently not being used. And if anything, being a manager for Max, Amy will be the voice of Max.
Right.
So that's a good thing.
Sinister Minister Joe Galley tells us nowhere to be found, but we know he's appearing on another show currently. He's over at Impact with the Hex right now. Mm-hmm. Sam points. Oh, let me get to this first. Connecting people through wrestling. I love this guy. Do you know this? Everybody knows this guy, right?
Yep.
The yellow rectangle you'll see ringside around different events. Welcome. I think the first time you've been here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I look forward to seeing you at some of the shows in the near future that we'll be going to. Hopefully I'll be over in Chicago, and I'm definitely going to go to 75 if you're going to those. So great that you're here. Tyrus thinks, hey, you talk about rubber matches. Willie thinks Tyrus is the rubber NWA World Champion. Sam says, listen, they just need to bring in Heidi Howitzer now. You got Max, you need Heidi Howitzer. I think we all agree. And then Poyo, we do not know how long Amy will be with us, but it was incredible to have her there while we could. Yeah, I hope she got a great pop and both from the audience and I'm sure from you guys in the back as well. Willie wants Freya to Slaya. Me too. I enjoyed her. Heidi's under contract. Pollo says to another company and unable to be with us as a result. Full stop. So no more about that, I guess. But maybe someday, and we dare to dream. Connecting People says Dave's been a friend, and thank you both for the work that you do. Yeah, I appreciate that. That's great. Thank you so much. Anyway, in this particular match, looking at my notes here, Max is basically on offense as you would expect for most of the match. There's that miscommunication spot or two between her and Genocide. And then Markova ends up delivering the beautiful disaster to Genocide for the win. And then after the match, we get this spot where CJ brings out Magic Jake Dumas, and they get up in Mercurio's face. And presumably this is going to be an issue between them down the road. Interesting, just having an angle start right at the end of a match that it's on the pre-show. It wasn't really super necessary, but it was a great opportunity for them to build some, and they took it. What do you think overall?
I did like that they had after the match that they had Jake and CJ appear and basically do a mixed tag challenge to Mercurio and Markova. But the match itself, in Genocide being pinned, I thought it made Genocide look weak. In my opinion. I mean, you could have easily had CJ and Magic Jake come out during the match. Somebody turns to look, and there's a DQ finish, something to keep both teams looking strong. Have a wonky finish, because, I mean, in my eyes, you look at Genocide, even if you're taking a kick to the head, she's a big girl.
Right.
Now, I do see why they had Genocide take the loss rather than Max.
Yeah.
But still, have some weird DQ finish where there's outside interference. Everything could have been the same, just with a DQ finish.
Right. I agree. I don't know how that looked. I'm sure you could fantasy book it into something, but I agree, and I hear what you're saying. At first, I thought, Jay, you were going, wow, but I think you were saying that Heidi's in women wrestling, which may be the case. I'm sure it is if you've said so. And Jeremy points out Frey's in OVW. Yes, I had forgotten that. And I'm glad she's that sounds like a pretty decent place to be these days. Willie wants Reka Tahaka or Viperous, Ruby Reyes, or Ali Catch on the NWA roster. But Jay points out the best thing about having no Sinister Minister, there's no gimp. Yeah, I agree with you there. Love the wrestler, don't like the gimmick. Always pointing that one out. But we go right into the pay-per-view, Dave. We start off with the Singapore Cane match with Tom Latimer, the king of all evil, who's a babyface, against Fodder, Psycho Boy Fodder. This one started with Latimer chasing Fodder around, in and out of the ring, and then getting frustrated and handing the candlestick over to the ref and saying, I just want a straight fight. As Fodder finally gets in, Latimer just seems to toss him around and have his way with him, throwing him into the steps on the outside. But he ends up going to the top rope with the cane at this point. But Fodder hits him on the way down, and he utilizes that cane. He works over Latimer with the weapon. But there's one mistimed move, and it allows Latimer to take over. He uses the cane across the back. When Fodder goes down, he gets a crossface with a cane over Fodder's mouth and makes him tap. I thought it was a a decent affair that really, showed what they want to do with Tom Latimer. What did you think?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, Tom just looked like he lost it. That after being hit with some of the canes, he just snapped and finally basically F it. I'm getting this win, and just went after it. I mean, that crossface submission. I mean, the cane right across his mouth, man. That looked vicious, and it kept Tom strong. Fodder just needs to be rebuilt. Whether it be, I believe he was part of CYN. So if down the line EC3 comes back and says, "Hey, you strayed off the path. You went with Angelina Love," and see what happened. Right. You've had nothing but bad luck. Come back under my spell, and we'll see what happens down the line. Who knows?
Scooby's always booking, guys. He's always booking. It's great. Hey, Poyle points out that Freya can work with the NWA and has been backstage recently. That's great.
Cool.
I enjoyed her around. I think it was a Circle Squared a couple of years ago.
Yep.
And she's an Alaskan talent, I believe, by birth. So that's well, maybe not by birth. I don't know that for a fact, but I think that's where she's primarily resides, or was before Ohio Valley. I thought she was different, and she had some qualities that you don't really see in women's matches very often. So, and very young. So I'm glad that she's about and can can work. Sam asked, "What if Angelina went with Fodder back to CYN?" Yeah, anything is possible. Solid match to start off the pay-per-view.
Oh yeah.
We got Valentine backstage now with Matt Cardona. He's lost the 10 pounds of gold, or he never lost it. He feels like it should have been handed back to him. He came back in record time from an injury, and Billy should have handed the title back to him, but he never got beat from it. And he promises us that he'll be a 2-time champion after tonight. Just before we go to the next match, Poyo says, "We will see some new women talent auditioning, perhaps appearing in the near future. We are constantly attracting potentially new competitors." I love these little tidbits. They're even better than like actual information, because it's tantalizing. I'm so glad you're here, Poyo, just letting us know that new and interesting things continue to happen in the NWA. That's exciting to hear. We do get a NWA World Junior Heavyweight Championship match up next with Kerry Morton with his dad Ricky, and against Alex Taylor with Danny Deals. This one was Taylor's Championship Series cash-in match, and he's decided to go after the World Junior. Morton has control early in this match. Taylor keeps pace. I think for the most part, there's a chop fest bit on the ring apron I could have lived without, but Morton, I believe that he I'm trying to remember this one. My notes are terrible. My own writing's awful. He crashes Morton down on the edge, but Taylor ends up back in the ring, and Deals ends up grabbing Kerry's leg. He looks down and tries to stalk Deals, and Taylor dives on the champ with an over-the-top rope dive of, they call it the tope suicida. I think that tope suicida.
Yeah.
There is a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker from Taylor as this one goes on that keeps Morton down. There's a number of moves back and forth. Deals ends up looking for a weapon. Ricky kind of stops him and punches him out on the outside. Kerry ends up going for his finisher and misses. and Taylor hits which looked to me like a Michinoku driver, and gets a 2 count. He sets Morton up on the top rope, but Morton slides out, he slides out, and he ends up power bombing Taylor, hits the kiss of goodbye for a 2 count, which sort of, we've been talking about this for the last show, or we've had people kicking out of the kiss of goodbye. Taylor ends up hitting a super kick. Morton returns it to with an elbow to the back of the head, and he delivers a kind of spinning inverted elbow drop, is what I wrote it down as, for the pin and the win. What did you think of the match with Kerry Morton retaining the junior heavyweight title?
I thought it was a good match overall. It highlights your younger talent. I did like that throughout the match, Kerry was wincing and showing that his injured hand, he was actually reacting to it. It wasn't, oh, high spot, high spot, high spot. When he was hitting moves, he was actually selling his injury. And I think a lot of that goes back to his dad working with him, that when you are injured or when you get hit a certain way or take a certain move, you're not just going to pop back up. If you get back up, oh, my neck, so start rubbing your neck. Oh, I got hit in the face. Okay, well, if you get hit in the face, you're going to have blurry vision. Sell the moves. And that's the one thing I can say that Kerry is decent at. He sells a move. He doesn't just pop right back up and continue to whoop ass. Taylor did a very good job. But one of the things with Alex Taylor is he's been wrestling as a tag team wrestler. Mm-hmm. And when you put them in singles matches, it's not a weakness, but they're so used to depending on getting the tag that if they're injured or getting a beaten, they're able to tag out. When you're wrestling one-on-one, you have to take it and keep taking it, and you're your only backup.
Right.
But I mean, overall, I'd give it probably a 7 or 8 out of 10, that it was a good match. It highlighted the young talent. And if Alex decides to go back to tag teaming with Jeremiah, that's great. If he wants to continue going after the junior heavyweight, that's great as well. I mean, there's an upside either way he goes.
Right. And he's come such a long way in a short time. And
oh yeah,
I've equated the NWA to like AAA ball in the past, and where you're seeing some young stars now, and you watch them grow until they end up, you would think, moving on to a place where they're going to get paid a lot more money. And I feel that way about Kerry Morton. And the like you mentioned, like the way that he sells, which, if I can put a criticism to Joe Alonzo, that's something he needs to learn a little bit more, I think. But Pollo points out, not to mention his hand is broken, very much broken in real life. And so, like last week especially, he looked so miserable. I'm sure it hurt. That's probably why he looked that way. This is the funniest thing I've heard. If I had a tumor, her name would be Angelina Shea. I wouldn't name it Angelina. Willie doesn't like her either. Yeah, that's rough. Willie doesn't like her either. Anyway, we do end up going into a very personal matter up next, because it is a singles match between the Thrillbilly Silas Mason with Pollo Del Mar. What was that? Yes. Pete Rivers carries first match without a full cast. Right. The Thrillbilly Silas Mason with Pollo Del Mar against the most feared Kratos. This is, as they call it, the rubber match. It's personal for Mason after the events of NWA Power Live, which I'm sure Pollo could tell us about firsthand if she wanted to throw any extra shade or information that on the chat. So Kratos, it starts off talking some smack and to Pollo, and Mason throws live bombs at Adam in her defense. Yeah, Dern. God, that's a tongue twister for me. Dern dirty no gooder done busted my lip. Yeah. So yeah, Mason's throwing haymakers, defending Pollo. Kratos is someone entirely different. He attacks in the back later when no one's looking. Like Kratos is in the driver's seat here. It goes back and forth. And Kratos launches himself with a plancha to the outside. He nails a backbreaker on the ring apron. There's punches while draping the NWA ring apron over top of his face, and it looks bad. Mason is launched with a suplex across the ring by Kratos, but Thrillbilly starts his comeback. He nails a short lariat that allows him to cover Kratos for 2. Pollo leads the fans with chants for her man. Kratos rips off the pad to expose a turnbuckle, the big turnbuckle ring underneath. Can't finish the job on Mason this way, though. So as the fans are very much behind Thrillbilly here, who's really got a lot of steam these days, he scoops up and slams Kratos. He nails a splash and then a lariat. He gives Kratos a power bomb. He stacks him up for 2. Kratos ends up catching him from what was like sort of a crossbody and transitioning him into a brainbuster for 2. And he shoots the ropes. Mason sends him in for the thrill ride for the 1-2, and there's a kick out. Mason goes for an ankle lock, making us think, maybe there's a new submission, a new finisher for Kratos. Kratos gets out, however. He tries to send Mason to the exposed turnbuckle, but he ends up getting launched and hitting his own head into that exposed turnbuckle. It is a bloodbath coming out of Kratos' head. Mason's throws a side headlock on. The ref just goes, "That's it. It's over." He stops it. So your winner by referee stoppage is a Thrillbilly Silas Mason. There's so much blood coming out of Kratos' head. They show it up close. Head wounds bleed, and there's a lot of pressure up there in the old cranium. Kratos says, "I was repulsed. Blood was literally shooting out into the air. You could see it. It was terrible." You could see it on the camera, just pumping out, and boy, that was rough. What did you think of the match, Dave?
I thought it was a great match. I mean, it highlighted both talents, and with there not being a 3 count, it's a way to get around. You never beat me. That it keeps Kratos strong. Thrillbilly is just, I mean, each match is better and better. And it's one of these that, yeah, this was the quote unquote rubber match, but they just stopped it. There was never a 3 count. So I'm assuming he won due to the stoppage.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a quote unquote 3 count victory.
Right. No pinfall, no submission.
Yes.
It's the equivalent of a count out almost. Yeah. Ref stoppage. Did you like the match overall?
I mean, I was just like, man, when his head hit and then I just saw blood and more blood and more blood, I'm like, holy cow.
Yeah.
That's just, whew.
Yeah, and I mean, it was a lot to see even from the chair. I was a bit surprised. We haven't really seen that in the NWA this time around. Pollo is saying that dumbass doesn't knock himself out. As far as I'm concerned, we got a decisive victory just by not being stupid. Yeah, any win in the any W in the win column counts. Absolutely, for sure. Congratulations. May Valentine is backstage with Angelina Love. She asks, "Are you going to be holding the Burke after tonight?" Love says something like, "Thanks for the homework." I don't know, but and something about how at least she's not a Playboy centerfold. Okay,
That's a good thing, I think.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's something May worked for, and I think it's wonderful. But she goes on to say that the only thing that's going to come between her and her man fodder tonight is the birth. Waiting for Willie to chime in on this one. But that's not up next. What is up next is the NWA World Women's Tag Team Championship match between our champions, Pretty Empowered, Kenzie Page and Ella Envy, versus the Renegade Twins, Robin and Charlotte. So Paige and Charlotte start. Envy comes in, and the twins make mincemeat out of one half of the tag team champions for the start of this thing. There's an eventual tag out to Paige, and the twins double team, and Paige is in a lot of trouble. The tables are turned, of course, as Paige gets Robin off the top rope, and Envy takes over, and Robin's in trouble for much of this thing. They double slam her. They get a 2 count, but Robin ends up knocking Paige down as she comes in. There's a hot tag to Charlotte, and she's the Renegade on Fuego, as someone wrote online. As the twins go for their version of the heart attack, the Renegade's Revenge, I believe it's called. Robin ends up getting tripped by Paige, but Charlotte gets a schoolgirl on Envy and covers for the pin and the win, and new Women's World Tag Team Champions, the Renegade Twins. Dave, what did you think?
I thought it was a very good match. It highlighted all the women. Pretty Empowered had a reign of almost 250 days. So it sets up a rematch. Plus, with Pretty Empowered, they have Roxy, and now they have Kylie, who is Kenzie's younger sister. So either have them as a B team, Pretty Empowered, or could there possibly be a split of Pretty Empowered and the sisters go one way and Ella and Roxy form a new team? Who knows?
Yeah, any extra team to the women's division is a good addition at this point.
I mean, even if they're a group of 4 women and they're all Pretty Empowered, having 2 teams is a good thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's one of those things that when they go for a rematch, they can always have interference being run.
Right.
So it's one of these things of it's good for the women's division. I wasn't really surprised that the Renegade Twins won. I was glad they won. But I mean, close to 250 days is good. You give them a run of a couple hundred days. They're new to this game. They just started like 2 or 3 years ago.
Right.
And I mean, it's one of these things that they say blood's thicker than water. As being a twin tag team, they know what to do. It's almost instinct. So give them a good run. If they have to move on, they move on. If not, you have a young, strong team that you can build up some other teams or bring in some other teams that they've worked with. And I'm glad that they're going to be defending the belts outside of the NWA. They were on Busted Open, and they said that they're willing to defend basically anywhere that they wrestle.
That's great.
And I mean, that's a positive situation for them and the NWA.
I want to go back to some of the Sam Retro. We'll come back to you in a second. But since we're on this topic, Pro says the women's tag team division is about to heat the F up, I promise. And talking about pretty empowered, never relied on the Freebird rule before, but who knows?
Yeah.
You know, nobody's asking me, and no one ever will. But, you know, if I were building a tag team division today like AEW, you know, did or at least attempted to, whatever your opinion of that might be, I would have tag team champions that could either defend as 6-man tag teams or as a pair, and just have one set of belts. And I think that would be that, you know, have a Freebird rule in effect for your tag teams. So, I would leave it champ's choice. You know, we want our third guy this time. Go pick a third or not. I think that would be exciting. But going back up here, Sam said, you know, Cyan should just take the mask off. He's wearing the whole costume on the independent scene, minus the mask. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I know what you're saying. When I was a kid, there was a series of Batman comics that I had collected where Batman was just, Bruce Wayne was just kind of going around being Batman without part of the costume on. And it was pretty obvious it was him. But hey, I mean, that's what they want right now. That's what there is for Cyan, right? Mm-hmm. I still like Cyan. He's come a long way. But going back to that, you know, Angelina Love's comments with May about, you know, being in Playboy, 50,000 Instagram followers since that Playboy. That sounds like a darn win to me. Sure does. Yep. Mike, who is Mark, or Mark, who is Mike, or Matt, says, you know, amazing Playboy. And yeah, man, he February 2023 cover in centerfold. So yeah, that is big stuff for sure. Michael says, I wasn't happy with the Renegade Twins winning. I guess a lot can be built off of it. I want to see a different gear off of them. They remind me of the Romeros. However, the one with the straighter hair, yeah, they're identical twins. They honestly, they are, but they do look different. Mm-hmm. They look different. My wife was pointing that out. Okay, they're just get into it in the chat for a while. Hey, it's Mandy. Welcome, Mandy. I agree. Cyan, take off the mask. We all know whose son he is. There's no mystery behind the mask. I mean, he's got two different. He's got three different characters, right? If you know, you know. So whatever works. I know they're trying to throw back to the days of Mr. Wrestling, the Grappler, you know, Destroyer, all that good stuff. Poyle says, look, I work directly with them. If they had the same hairstyle, they look identical. I mean, you're right there. Who am I? They look different sometimes in interviews than they do, and I guess it's probably just the hair and the outfit. But my wife was saying facially, they look a bit different. One seems to have a different jawline or something than the other. But anyway, yes, here you go. Short hair, Robin. Long curlier hair, Charlotte. They are wonderful. Sweet vanilla. I'm yelling. I'm hearing myself. Everybody's here tonight. Where were we at? So new champs, which leads us over to EC3 versus the returning after 6 or 7 years, Kevin Kiley, the rare breed. He is back after this 6-year hiatus. He comes out in an NWA shirt and pants. which at first I thought, like, what's going on? And I thought, he's been away for 6 years. You can kind of sell that on camera, right? Like, maybe he doesn't even have the gear anymore. This match largely has EC3 dominating Kylie, but this guy is not a complete pushover, obviously, with his past. But EC3 manages to slow him down. He controls the tempo. He picks him apart. And there is obviously the one that kind of overshadows the rest of the match with a part where EC3 is outside the ring and Kylie takes a running dive over the top, looks like he catches his foot and just tumbles to the floor below. And like I was saying at the beginning of the show, I literally went,
Yeah.
I'm not squeamish, but I'm like, he's broken something or he's knocked himself out. And to hear from Poyo here in the chat, thankfully, that he is fine, just a little embarrassed, was really good to hear. Yeah, that was a scary, scary moment. He's not at EC3's level. He's not portrayed that way. He's portrayed as a guy who's got some skills. He's got a lot of ring rust, has a long way to come. In the ring, he essentially gets tapped out to the purpose, I think EC3 calls it, right? And it's winner by submission is EC3. What did you think of this match, Dave?
I thought it was a good match for what it was. I've never wrestled, so I don't know what coming back after 1 year, let alone 6 or 7, would be like. It's one of those things that they say, oh, it's like riding a bike. Yes and no. You may have the basics down, but trying to do things that you did even 5 years ago, your body ages, and you may not be able to do the things you used to do. So I would have liked them to be more of a mental game where EC3 played with him rather than doing high moves, have him knock him off the ring apron rather than going for a dive out of the ring. It's a lot simpler of a move. Yourself. When I saw that, I was like, oh, he crashed and burned. I was glad he was able to get up and they were able to continue the match, but it may have been a little too much too soon. That it wasn't a long match. It was about 6.5, maybe 7 minutes, but it got the point across. Now it's up to Kylie to basically, I'm not going to say redeem himself, but it's up to him to prove himself to the crowd and to himself that he still has it, that he can still wrestle. Now, I don't know if he returned too soon. I know he had a match with tagging with Tyrus a couple months ago, but wrestling someone on pay-per-view is a lot different than basically just going in and wrestling somebody in a ring as practice. I don't know if he returned too soon or if they can work this into a control your narrative storyline of him playing mind games.
Right.
That you're not who you think you are. I had control over you, blah, blah, blah. EC3, like I said before, he's very good at the mind games, very good wrestler. He can talk, but I'm not connecting with the control your narrative. This I may be able to connect with if he mixes the wrestling with some of the psychological games that he plays.
Right.
But who knows? I mean, it's one of these things of hurry up and wait. We'll have to just wait and see.
That's right. Poyo says maybe Kevin gets a fun comeback story. We'll see. In a way, and this is part of, I'm sure, the art of wrestling too, is with that dive and that looked like the toe getting caught on the top rope that made him spill. You can take something like that and go, like as part of the storyline. I've been away for 6 years, man, and I gave it my all. And next time I'll be right over the top rope, and it almost helps with that comeback story, right?
Mm-hmm.
That and bringing his way back to where he wants to be. Hitman had asked. He had said he hoped that Kevin was okay, and Poyo says, had told us earlier he is fine. He didn't break anything or knock himself out. It just kind of hurt his pride a little bit. So, but yeah, Jay, that dive though. Anyone else he adds getting Ravens Flock Sick Boy vibes? Yeah, I mean, there was a bit at the end in where EC3 whispers something into his ear, and we don't know what it is as he walks off. It could be anything from just your classic heel, your pathetic, and to just like you need to find your narrative or whatever that might be, right? So we'll see how that unfolds. It looks like from the viewer's seat anyway that control your narrative, whether you like it or not, is going to play a larger part this season. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, Ori says, I nearly killed myself trying to be someone I was 7 years ago. I'm not. I'm someone new, and you're going to see who that is now. Smart Money says he changes his style to better suit who he is now. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean that would be great to see. Let's see what happens with Kevin Kiley. I think it'll be interesting. But we go up next into an NWA World Tag Team title match between your champions La Rebelion versus Blunt Force Trauma with Aaron Stevens, guys. And so Joe Galley noted that Damien Sace is barred from ringside for this. It is a lot of smash mouth wrestling, as you would expect in this match, given who these teams are. The very innovative La Rebellion and the very blunt Force Trauma. Really take it to each other in this one. There are at the end some stereo planchas, but Stevens hits Bestia with a loaded glove, but is caught by the ref in the act, and they're disqualified. Your winners by DQ or La Rebellion. This one was kind of thrown together a little bit, Dave, near leading into this pay-per-view at the end. What did you think about it overall?
Well, with the DQ, it keeps both teams strong at least. I'd like to see down the line Blunt Force Trauma drop Aaron, being that, I mean, Aaron's been around wrestling for 20 plus years.
Yeah. He
should know when you interfere and when you don't. Not right in front of the ref.
Right.
But I was glad that Damien 666 was not there, but I don't like having the managers interfere. Maybe it's just the managers, if you're there to talk for your team, that's fine. But it's one of these things that down the line, it's going to be, we handcuff you to the post, or you're somehow not able to interfere, and either one team or the other is able to win, and it's straight down the line. There's no interference.
Right.
But it's one of these things I really don't know. I mean, it did seem just thrown together. And I mean, I'd like to see Blunt Force Trauma. I don't know if they're going to end up doing a Doom thing where they dump their manager for another manager, or they end up in a versus title.
Right. That was Woman. Did they dump? No, they went to Woman.
They went to Woman. It was Teddy Long.
Right? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Hey, I can't remember honestly what I had for lunch yesterday, but I remember Teddy Long. Yeah. Hey, listen. For the stuff that Mike's talking about in the chat there, I'm going to keep on the pay-per-view, but I want to just very quickly. You guys can read it on your own. But Poyo, you saying that you're happy to fight the battle that they're talking about in the chat right now, so others don't have to do as much later. I appreciate that. I have at least one child who appreciates that, I'm sure, and friends as well. And I think that it's important, and I love that the NWA is a place where this happens. I didn't love this particular match, and it was kind of thrown together in the end. But it is what it is, and it wasn't terrible. Like Mike said in the chat, this is a pretty good pay-per-view overall so far, and it doesn't really go downhill at any point. But the next match up, anyway, if I'm reading my notes correctly, is Trevor Murdoch and Chris Adonis. Galley kind of ties this one back to the feud being reignited from, I'm going to say 2020 over the national title. I mean, I don't know. I think that saying that doesn't necessarily make it ring true, but it doesn't matter because it's two great talents that I love to see fight. Nobody steps down in this one. It kind of gets a bit, it gets, as you would understand, it would be with Trevor Murdoch, pretty aggressive. Adonis goes for the master lock pretty early, and Murdoch rolls out of the ring. Adonis follows. Murdoch chops away. There's a backdrop to the ring apron. He throws Adonis into the steel post. As they get in the ring, Murdoch gets a double wrist lock to Adonis to keep him grounded. But Chris fights back with a flying shoulder block. Murdoch comes back, clobbers him for a 2 count, just smokes him.
Yeah.
Follows up with a pop-up power bomb, and then lines up for the bulldog, and Adonis catches him in the master lock, and the ref calls it. Chris Adonis via submission, or cannot continue if you want to call it. If you want to call it that, it was a good match, as Poyo says. We got to see work and character development. What did you think, Dave?
I thought it was a very good match. Trevor can always bounce back. He's one of those guys that whether he wins or loses, he's there. I mean, it's building Masters back up after he hasn't done much over the last year. And I'm glad that they need some of these veterans to be able to work with the younger guys and also work with other veterans, that they need the best possible matches that they can put on. And when you're not highlighting somebody like Chris Adonis, why not? I mean, he has it all. It was a very brutal, hard-hitting match.
Yeah, how can you go wrong?
If they want to build Masters up to go after the national title, that's fine. Or even, I mean, he can basically work with anybody. That if you put him against Tyrus, it may not be a 5-star match, but it will be a good match. That They've worked together in the past, and I mean, they're both names.
Right.
Now, I'm not sure what they're going to do with Trevor, if he's going to go on a losing streak and just finally explode and come back, because he still has a title shot. When he lost his title, he still has that title shot.
He does.
His rematch. Either that or have Trevor find somebody and go after the tag belts. Use him. He can work with anybody. Build someone else up as a tag team partner that, hey, kid, I see something in you.
Right.
But use him. If he's moving out of the upper singles, put him in that. Or if I've heard that they are possibly going mixed tags, have him find some female that he can tag with.
Yeah.
But I just don't want him to be out of the picture. I mean, he's too good of a wrestler to not be wrestling.
And not to keep it all Southern, because that's a nice gimmick, but it's not always important. Like we've said a couple of times, Trevor and the Country Gentleman, Trevor and Thrillbilly. I mean, that's a badass tag team right there, right?
Yep.
But anyway, let's move on. We do get Camille defending the NWA World Women's Championship against Angelina Love in a no DQ match. As Love comes into with her introduction to the ring, Camille's just out of the back and jumps her. She's still wearing the Burke. She's wearing those cutoff shorts. She came for a fight. Is the message that we get right off the bat. She gets a quick backslide on Love for a 2 count. But Love retaliates. She ends up throwing Camille into a steel post. Love just ends up doing all kinds of damage to Camille outside the ring and around the ring with the barricades. There's a chair that's brought into it, slammed across her back. She's firmly in control after the great start by Camille. Camille makes her comeback being Camille. She gets that really cool Lex Luger-like torture rack that she is modified out into a spin-out slam for a 2 count. I would love to see her just submit someone with that someday. Just let's see someone tap out to that move. She gets a trash can. She places it over Angelina's body. Then she goes to the other side of the ring. Camille, who's like, I'm going to say 6'1", 6 feet, something like that, 5'11" at the very least. She goes to the top rope and she nails a Van Terminator or Van Daminator. Can't remember what they call it, but across the ring drop kick into the garbage can.
Yeah, coast to coast. Yep.
Coast to coast. And
that was insane.
It was. I was the angle. It was. I don't know if that was for our benefit in case you didn't get all of it, but it didn't. We didn't get to see everything. I would literally love there would be like replays every once in a while, and then it would programming. Anyway, she gets a table from under the ring. She sets it up in a corner. Love ends up throwing a garbage can in her face, and she hits the Botox injection. It's as close as she'll come tonight. She gets a 2 count. She goes and grabs the Burke. She swings. Camille ducks. Camille delivers the spear through the table, drags her out. 1, 2, and 3. Your winner and still NWA World Women's Champion, Camille. By the way, our good friend and leader, J. Cal, in the Alliance Wrestling Discord, is starting I think it's the Alliance Wrestling Discord, has a channel for Camille's title defenses, how many she's had, and if you're still here, I'd love to hear what number we're up to right now. I thought for me, once again, and at this point, none of us should be surprised. Camille steals the show for this card for me. What did you think, Dave?
I thought it was good. Having a no DQ match, I mean, it expanded the match where they could use foreign objects. They can use basically by any means necessary to win. So it was one of those things that it wasn't just strength and brawn and a spear. It was all these other moves. And I mean, when she hit that coast to coast, I was like, holy crap. But I mean, she's been working with several different wrestling schools and trainers. And I mean, the more knowledge and the more moves that she can do, she's not just I'm a big female brute strength and that's it. That I mean, when she can hit some of these different moves, I'm just like, it amazes me.
It does.
And I think working with Angelina Love, who is a veteran in the business, granted, Camille's been wrestling for a few years, but Angelina Love has been wrestling close to 20 years.
Right.
It's working with people that make the wrestling match and the wrestlers look good.
And
so,
kudos
I mean,
to Angelina Love for being that person.
Oh, I know. I mean, it's one of those things, and I mean, that's what you use. That's the correct usage of a veteran to help keep your champion strong. And if it's someone who's a rookie or new to the business, help everybody look good.
Exactly. And you know what amazes me isn't that Camille continues to steal the shows. Her matches with Taya, her matches with Max. You know, she's working with people who help her along the way with Angelina Love, being part of those things as well. She's got a litany of people of good names that she's worked with and come out on top and, you know, learned from. It's that the equivalent from going coast to coast for me, for an athlete like Camille, who is just physically built like she is, to do that move that, you know, like you'd see Joe Alonzo go up, you go, he's going to hit this. Like with Camille, you'd go, is she actually doing this? It seems like it's on the outskirts of her range of ability, right? It's like the equivalent of seeing Tyrus go to the top rope and do Macho Man's elbow, you know, like, like is she going to actually do this right now? Like,
definitely. Yep.
Yeah. She's learned so much in the time that she's, you know, been around. And Roswell points us out. Welcome, Roswell, to the show. Camille has gotten better with time. I was a big critic at the start of her run. I have to give props when they're due. Congrats to her, 100%. She's just improved under the NWA banner from like nobody's business, and continues to do so to the point where, I mean, are we talking the last 3 pay-per-views? I think now she's had the best matches on all of them. There you go. Let's move on to the National Heavyweight Championship. It is the Great Scion with his dad, Austin Idol, versus Homicide. Idol's going on about his son. Homicide comes right after Scion while he's still wearing his outfit, his vest and cape. He throws him out of the ring. He's trying his best this match to rip the mask off of Scion. There were a couple of times when I thought it might happen. Maybe they're gonna take it off him at this point. But I think there's probably a story to be told there before that happens. He sends him back in the ring. He's hard into the corner. He transitions into that Boston Crab, Brooklyn Bridge, or whatever it is. But Idol ends up distracting. Homicide goes to deal with Idol. Scion attacks from behind, sends him shoulder first into the ring post. He works over Homicide with a backdrop on the ring apron. He rips off, and I read this. I didn't note this at the time, that he ripped off the Jay Briscoe armband and started choking him with it. I'm like, I don't remember that. But wow. Homicide chops away. Scion responds with a power slam. There's a 2 count. Scion gets him in a submission. He tells Homicide to apologize to his father. And after a bit, he goes, okay. Austin Idol, I'm sorry you're a bitch.
I was like, yeah, that's just, I mean, classic Homicide.
Yeah. That fires. My wife was like, he's not going to do anything. That fires up Scion with punches in the turnbuckle. There's a T-bone suplex for a 2 count. Homicide ends up countering with his tornado DDT for his own 2 count. He nails the 3 amigos, as he calls it, with his Eddie,
Eddie Guerrero, yeah.
Eddie Guerrero tribute. He goes up to the top. Scion cuts him off, nails a superplex, but can't follow up quick enough for a pin. Homicide ends up getting up quicker, hitting a neck breaker for a 2 count. It's really back and back. He follows with a Koji cutter for another 2. Homicide then ends up going up on top. Scion catches him with a slam for 2 and a rolling DVD. His rolling Death Valley driver ends it. He's still your national champion. Scion versus Homicide sounds really exciting on paper when I read it back to myself. I didn't love it. What did you think?
It wasn't a bad match, but I mean, it went over 15 minutes. It could have been cut back a few minutes. It was a very good back and forth match.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm wondering why they went with it. I know that Homicide had lost his title and was wanting to go after and get a new title. That I'm not sure if they had somebody prepared or they had to basically switch after the live power and figure out what they were going to do, since Scion wasn't at the power tapings or the live power and that following taping, that they more or less had to make the story go as one of the major players wasn't there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was not my favorite match of this pay-per-view by half. But I respect the effort. Let's go back to the chat for a second, because I know that Lou, our friend Lou, sure helps. We're talking about Camille and that coast to coast. It sure helps not being in a 20-foot ring. Yeah, it does. I still say it's a feat, given the type of athlete that she is, and I thought it was impressive looking coming from her as a power wrestler as well. Roz has noticed the side of the ring. Thinks out there in Seattle they use that same size ring as well. Well, he said, hey, 20-foot ring couldn't stand the weight of Tyrus and Wrecking Ball from Fixers. Yeah, I mean, listen, this match is back and forth, like you say. I don't know. It didn't do it for me in the end. But we go to our main event because Billy Ray comes out. He tells his ex, out of the seat you go. He doesn't tell her, but I mean, off Velvet goes. He goes, this guy's amazing. We always talk about Bully about firing up the crowd with the NWA chants. He's here for commentary in the World Heavyweight Championship match between your champion Tyrus, the Manster, versus Always Ready Matt Cardona. The stipulations for this is that there's no seconds at ringside for either men. I don't know, Dave, like, this didn't warrant a cage match, but like at some point, just given the history of the NWA, the Lightning One era, occasionally likes to, remind us that they forayed into, and that they are the shepherds of. I'd like to see something that throws back to that, like
Hmm.
it has probably rightfully so, and for good reason, been 35 years since I saw a coal miner's, glove on a pole match,
Yeah.
or a cage match, or whatever it might be. I'd like to get back into see something traditional. Maybe this wasn't that match, but I thought the stipulation was kind of lame.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Cardona comes out in, I don't know, Road Warrior inspired gear. I don't know what that was, but
Yeah.
it was hilarious. Kyle Davis addresses Eddie Graham's family at ringside, which I kind of wish they'd mentioned earlier on, because when the talent's coming out, they're walking right past this row of people, and I'm like, who got seats here? Like, that's amazing. Those are great seats. So it's Eddie Graham's family. They're at ringside. Then we do, of course, the boxing style intros. But as the match ends up starting, Tyrus ends up starting this match with a bunch of slams. Cardona powders. When he comes back in, Tyrus overtakes him pretty quickly. Bully Ray ends up leaving the commentary position and going to ringside to trash talk. And Tyrus attacks. Cardona ends up sending him out. He refocuses on Tyrus as he climbs between the ropes. He's breaking the champ down. There's covers at every opportunity, but he can't keep Tyrus down for the 3 count. He goes into a figure 4 submission, which I wondered if that was causing any real pain to Tyrus. He always seems to have a bit of a trouble being a big guy. I never quite weighed that much myself, but I've been close to 300 in the past. Like, trying to get up after being down, especially at like an older age like he is now, you can see he's putting his hands on top of his kneecap and he's pressing himself up. But anyway, in the figure 4, Tyrus won't quit. He tries to roll out, but Cardona grabs the ropes and to stop his momentum. That's really neither here nor there. Tyrus is in the driver's seat shortly thereafter. Tries a splash but misses. Cardona ends up. What is that? The reboot? Is that what it's called? That signature move. He ends up doing it 3 times and getting a cover for a 2 count. So kind of frustrated, really pissed off at this point. He grabs the 10 pounds of gold, the ref, for the 12 pounds of gold, if you like. The ref intercepts him. Tyrus attempts the heart punch, I'm gathering that it was, and accidentally stuns the ref for a while. From there, Rolando Freeman runs out with a chair. He's there to do, he's aligned somewhat with Matt Cardona. Tyrus kind of tosses him away. Mike Knox gets in there as well as part of this problem. Knox grabs the ring bell, and Bully Ray knocks him out, and then it's a bit of a mess at the end. Tyrus comes to deliver the Tongan death grip to Cardona as the ref comes to, and it's a 1-2-3 for the pin. Your winner, still the NWA World's Champion, is Tyrus. Afterwards on this, Bully Ray comes out. He into the ring again, and he gives props to Tyrus by saying, you're doing things the old school way. He's really trying to get this rub on Tyrus about how he respects him for doing what, he said he was going to do, even though no one came out to, defend him from the back. Congratulations on being the world champ. You deserve it. You are worthy of this title. Bully Ray's weight his voice carries some weight with his very, very, very popular podcast with Dave LaGreca and Mickey James and who am I missing? Oh, Tommy Dreamer, Mark Henry.
Mark Henry. Yep.
Yeah. Thunder Rosa sometimes. So
Yep.
Bully Ray, his voice, maybe it helps a bit here, but I'm sure that's the thing. That's the point. Tyrus says, I appreciate all this. Anytime you want a shot at this, I'll sign that contract. But let's be clear, we're not friends. Then he mic drops, and that's it. The show's over. Bully Ray kind of watches him go. We're left with the thought that Bully might have a title shot in the near future, which is kind of interesting after his, recent pay-per-view main event over an Impact. So all of that, the match, the ending, Rolando Freeman, the bit afterwards. Give us your breakdown, Dave.
It wasn't as bad of a match as I thought it was going to be, giving the benefit of the doubt. But it's still with the outside interference. I mean, if you're going to have a one-on-one match and it's not going to be in a cage, you're not going to have your seconds out there, that's fine. Have more than one ref. You have 3 refs total. Have the 2 other refs, or have someone standing in the walkway. I mean, if you have another ref out there and then your ref goes down, you have a replacement. You can keep the match going. That it's one of these things. To me, it was just sloppy booking. They did all the little interferences to keep the match going. And I understand that. I mean, it went close to 15 minutes. But the thing is, they're using all these outside interference, the ref getting hurt, them not having to wrestle when the referee is hurt, or being able to do things besides wrestle. In a match like this, have more than one referee.
Right.
Knock it down maybe 1 or 2 minutes, make it a 12-minute match. You could still do everything without the interference that maybe Rolando runs out and he gets stopped by a ref, and in the one ref stopping him, the other ref may get knocked down and Knox sneaks in, where you have only one time interference rather than 2. It's just one of those things of, if you're going to say it's a Falls Count Anywhere match, if it goes to the bathroom, it counts there. If you're going to say it's this type of match or that type of match, stick to the rules.
Right.
That, I mean, no interference. Okay, use your other referees or have other quote-unquote NWA officials blocking the walkway so there is no interference at all. Right. Just make it make sense somewhat. I know what they were going for. They were going for a longer match with little pieces thrown in there of, now this really isn't supposed to happen, but it is happening. So it's basically taking away from the match, but it's adding to the length of the match.
Right.
But I mean, it was what it was. He's defended the belt, and I'm not sure where they're going to go with Cardona after this.
It sounds like he wants Bully now as for part of this interference, but they also teased Bully with Tyrus, and then Power was something different altogether around the world title. So, yeah, I feel like we always kind of go back to just make it make sense.
Yeah,
and that's what we kind of ask for more often than not. What would you give the pay-per-view a final grade? A, B, C, D, F?
Um,
And you guys in the chat, what would you give it as well?
I'd probably give it a C plus, maybe B minus. It's one of these things of it was a pay-per-view that wrapped up some stories, but continued others, and even started new stories.
Right.
So I'm excited to see what happens. I knew a couple of the people that were at the taping. I got some pictures, but it's just of, hey, there's some new talent. I'm not telling you who or what happens, but we do have new talent coming in, and I'm like, okay, cool. And I mean, I'd like to know, but I'd also like to be surprised, because I mean, I was very surprised that they had Tom win the TV title on the first Power, and I'm like, wow, okay,
Yeah, same.
cool. So it's almost one of these things of, hey, make sure you're watching because anything can happen.
Willie gave it a C plus. Roswell didn't watch it, only the pre-show. It was I'd go B minus B a little. I was a little happier with it, maybe slightly more than you. I think it's because I thought, honestly, that it was going to be fairly dismal going in. I didn't think it was going to be one of the better ones, and it was better than I thought. So I was happy with that. I'd spent my time and money, watching it, and as far as that goes, I thought it was a fairly decent offering. So that was it. Let us know what you guys think in the chat overall as well. But right now, let's go into some fantasy booking, as Dave is going to talk to us about La Rebellion. I love that video. That's so cool. I respect you, Booker Man. Here you go. Who faces La Rebellion for the NWA World Tag Team Championship, Dave?
Well, I'm not sure what they're planning on doing. I know they're going to be in Mexico, and I'm hoping that they're going to be on the Australian tour with Smashing Pumpkins. But I mean, right now, I mean, I'm looking and I'm like, okay, Blunt Force Trauma, they lost by outside interference.
Right.
So I don't think it's time for them to break up with Aaron Stevens yet, but just, hey, back off. That may be the next match that they have that there's no managers, whether it be Damien or Aaron, if there is another match. But I mean, you had a couple new teams develop. I mean, you have Jax Dane and Bulletproof Troop. And I mean, they're just beefy guys.
Right.
They're just bring the power.
Yeah.
If they get on the same page and start working together, I could see them possibly challenging, but that is an awful lot of size difference.
It is.
But then you also have Dax Draper and Mims. Draper's a very good wrestler for his size, but he is quite tall. He's, I think, 6'4", 6'5". Mims being put in a tag team gets him away from that TV title and I keep losing. If they can build up a new tag team that highlight these guys, give them a couple wins, and then give them a chance at La Rebellion.
Right.
It's one of these things, depending on what they decide to do at the Chicago show and the Chicago tapings, and then at the concert events, how the story goes. You still have Hawks Airy, which they're doing their own thing now down in New Orleans.
Mhm.
I'm hoping they're not done. Maybe it's just a cooling off period to then bring them back.
Yeah, sometimes it's got to be a matter, even if we love them, of
Yeah.
how can we miss you if you don't go away, right?
That I mean, they're good, but they've lost 3 or 4 times to La Rebellion. Until another team pops up and wins those belts, then you bring them back.
Right.
But I mean, you have 4 teams right there. Blunt Force Trauma. I'd like to see them win and then quote unquote turn face, even with the masks. If they don't lose the masks, cool. But you have, you also have the Country Gentlemen. I'm not sure if I'd do a 2 of your tag champions against each other. But on the lower end, you have the Country Gentlemen with the U.S. titles. Fixers can either move up or down. But I'm looking at, there's a lot of size difference between your current tag champions, your world tag champs.
Yep.
But they can go. So I'm not sure. You have your lower end. You have, I mean, Spectaculars. They're really not doing much with them. They're highlighting Rolando more than anything. So if anything, I'd take maybe Brady Pierce and move him over and maybe throw Rhett Titus, that you have a veteran and a younger wrestler working together. They're both 6'2", 6'3", something like that, at least. So you have decent size. They're both good wrestlers. They're both in very good shape. They could match up well. I'm not looking at a team, looking at them as a team to take the belts, but we just need 2 or 3 good teams to keep La Rebellion hot until they decide that, yes, we are making a change. So-and-so is going over and we have new tag belts or new tag champions. That it's one of these things that you just had back the very end of January. You had the U.S. belts change. You had the TV title change. It can happen anytime, but I think it needs to be built up to a good pay-per-view, whether if they do a Crockett Cup or even if they do an amended Crockett Cup and have 8 teams go for the Crockett Cup and the winner of the Crockett Cup gets a title shot the second night, along with all the other titles being put on the line, that it's Crockett Cup plus some. That
Right.
Your winner of the Crockett Cup goes after the World Tag Belts. But I mean, if they're not really doing anything with some of these teams, use them as quote unquote enhancement talent.
Right.
That, I mean, Miserably Faithful, Ill Begotten, they're all good wrestlers, but they're there to put shine on the team you want.
That's right.
So, I mean, right now, who knows? I mean, I'd like to see Draper and Mims get a shot. Now, if Jax Dane and Bulletproof Troop get on the same page and figure out how they can work together, there's another good team that you could go. But I mean, I mean, Jax Dane has been around. I'd give Draper and Mims a chance. They're the new kids on the block.
Right.
Give them a shot. They don't need to win. They just need to look good in not winning.
You know, one of my favorite short little angles, it's neither here nor there, I guess, was when the Midnight Express and with James Cornette, kind of bumped into Tully and Arn, and they were like, and JJ at ringside going, "When's that match going to happen, JJ?" Like, "Oh, we're all friends, Jimmy. You don't want to do this, right?" I would love to see that in the NWA again, and those like to have the two champs get into it, even if it doesn't go anyone's way. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, but I mean, right now there's a good, I'd say, a good chance of them getting some more tag teams involved, and I'm hoping that the now, and I'm hoping in Chicago that we get a little more involvement. I'm not sure if they're going to do Crockett Cup this year.
Yeah, our friend Dodi Kuzamanta was worried that they were going to put Crockett Cup up in Chicago. I think they should, because it gives it's not just a Southern thing. Like, I think it's important to make your events global acceptance events, right? Like, we're a legit big company. This event can happen anywhere, but I don't think it's going to happen either, Dave, unless it's much later in the year.
Well, I mean, they could get away with doing Crockett Cup as a possible taping scenario and not running it as a pay-per-view where you have 8 teams and you just go, okay, we're going to have the next 3 power episodes that we're taping or 4 power episodes that we're taping for the next month. It's going to be Crockett Cup month.
Right.
And you have your tag teams go against each other, whittle it down, and then at the next pay-per-view, you have a Crockett Cup championship match.
Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, you'd still keep it, but it's one of these things. It's difficult being that the Briscoes won, and they're not going to be able to defend the cup. And I mean, even if Mark was able to come back, I don't think they would allow him to come back. That him being signed with AEW / Ring of Honor, that it's one of those things of.
I think they'd let him. I just feel like the situation, they'd let him. Like Jay says, like the winner of the Crockett Cup, if there is one this year, ought to be Mark and whatever partner he wants. Maybe Jay Lethal, right?
Yeah.
Or FTR. Maybe that's your finals with Mark going over. I don't know. If there's no Crockett Cup, that would suck. Well, yeah. Sam likes Draper for national champion. Willie likes him in Latimer for world champions. I like him as in a tag team right now with Mims. I think that'd be great. Dave, lots of possibilities there.
Yep.
We gotta get out of here though. We're at the 2-hour mark. Thank you everybody in the chat for joining us. I remind you, if we can, where is it here? Thursdays, 8 p.m., 5 p.m. Pacific. It's the Alliance Guys podcast with Jay, Cal, DKM, and Jaden, the original OG Alliance Guys. They are going to be talking to you probably about this pay-per-view. I probably stole your material, Jay. I didn't have a USA this week. They're certainly talking to you about Power and all things NWA related. We'll be back with Jeremy next week, giving you some more UWN focus that we didn't get to today, which I hope will include the last part of the Red Carpet Rumble, which was super enjoyable.
Oh, yeah.
One of my favorite non-NWA events, over the past little while, is certainly out of Championship Wrestling. Next Tuesday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. It's the hour before Power, the pre-party with Jay Cal, the flagship for this. Jay does it all by himself. He leads you into Power and how that's going to look. Thank you guys for being here. Here's all our cool hashtags. Tell them where they can find you online, Dave.
At Dave Scooby on Twitter and Instagram.
Great. And Jeremy, who's not here right now, very active on Twitter at HJWOTS. I am on, Jeremy's also doing his own YouTube thing.
Yeah.
he recently talked to Mandolini. What's his
Frank.
Frank, thank you. I'm like, Leo? No, Frank. Frank Mandolini, the Last Minute Wrestling Podcast. It's a fun 25, 30-minute romp where Jeremy gets his feet wet, in interviewing someone who's really interesting in our community. So thanks everybody for being here. Go check that out on Wrestling with the MMA's YouTube channel. Track down Jeremy on Twitter. I'm on all of the social medias at the Alliance Gold. And more jokes and zingers, Willie says, next week, gentlemen, as Willie brings the heat on Tyrus and Angelina Love every single week. Until next time, guys, thank you for being here, and we'll see you at the matches.
Thanks for joining the stream. This has been a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com. We genuinely appreciate your support. Would you consider subscribing so you'll never miss a future episode? I'd also like to remind you we do a live stream every Tuesday at 5 p.m. before NWA Power. You can find us on social media at The Alliance Blog. And until next time, we are The Alliance.